from you is I understand the theory behind feminine, but sometimes I struggle to integrate it into my dating life. I think some examples would help me. Like, how do I set a boundary in a feminine way? And I love this because we have boundaries this weekend. And then also I'm talking a little bit about this in the module that just dropped today, module H. And then I'm talking about it today in module, well, I guess Friday is when you would get it, module E. So I will talk about this more, but I do want to break it down because I guess I haven't. There's not really a module in this program like specifically around feminine and masculine and polarity. So I think it will be beneficial to even just put this in the product so we can kind of talk and break that down a little bit, because it's life-changing and I don't know why I didn't like break it down even further. So this is a perfect question. I was like, yeah, I guess like I break it all down. And I mean, okay. So, you know, we all have masculine, feminine. I feel like at this point in our lives, we kind of get that by now. And like, yes, there are men that can be more feminine and there are women that can be more masculine. I was very much in my masculine. I remember sitting when I lived in Asia, just like crying to one of my friends, being like, I just want to be more feminine, but like, I have zero idea how, because I was running my businesses and I was doing my things and I was in these fitness competitions and I was afraid of men. And like, I was like, I look cute. Isn't that it? Like, I'm so confused, but like internally, I was like, I look like I'm dressing like it, which I thought was the first thing. I'm like, I get my nails done now. I get my weekly massages. I get my hair done. Like, I'm spending money on myself. I still don't feel it. Like, I'm like, that's not something that's happening. And I feel like that's a standard path a lot of us go on. And so kind of to break that down, that's not what femininity is, even though, I mean, look at me, I'm a double Libra. I love pretty things, but masculine energy is the doing energy. It's very driven. It's task oriented. It's freaking logic. Like in our brains, every time we're trying to be like, how can I think my way into feminine energy? You're in your masculine energy. Like, that is not how that works. It's very focused. It's very competitive. These things are great. This is what gets you ahead in your career. Like, this is when I'm teaching, when it's days like today, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm very in my masculine. And then Mondays, because that's my CEO day, like very in my masculine. But in partnership, or when my partners have been here or I'm visiting them or whatever, I have to go through a transition because that doesn't match when I want a masculine partner. So a big thing to identify in your relationship dynamics is, do you want a masculine partner? And this doesn't have to do with, male, female. It's just like, do you want someone that's leading, protecting, planning, doing the things? Or is that more your role? Do you like to control? And like, there are relationships that do that. Like my mother, very masculine woman, she did all that. My father was very feminine. That was their dynamic. It didn't work well, but it was their dynamic. But so it's claiming that I want to I say it all the time. I'm like, I want a Viking. Like, I want a freaking Viking, this big burly man. I mean, he's probably like, these are externals. I'm okay if he's not this big burly man, but it's like that energy of this like protector, this leader, this like, kind of thing. That's what I want. Therefore, that requires me to be in my feminine, right? And so if that's something you want, feminine is the receiving. And so this is the soft, this is the nurturing, this is the loving, the intuitive, the creative, the just soft, the soft person. And oftentimes we think feminine means weak. It is the strongest one. I talked about this, I think the first module or the second module, where I'm like, it is the strongest one, because we know we can erupt and fuck you up in a second, but we choose not to. And the thing that I see a big block on this is like, well, I don't want to be too feminine because I don't want them to think that I can't do it myself. No one is thinking no one is thinking I can't do things myself, like open my door or open a jar or do the thing or run my business. Like, no one's thinking that. But I know for the longest time, I thought that. I was like, well, if I don't prove myself that I can do all this on my own, they're going to take advantage of me. They're going to do something and they're going to, I don't know, fuck me because of domestic violence, because of all of the things that I had been through. I was like, well, if I be vulnerable and I be too soft and I don't stand my ground, they're going to take advantage of me. That's not how that works. And so when we claim we want a masculine partner or a feminine partner, we have to step into the other one, because these two things are like magnets. And a lot of times in the beginning of relationships, It's like hot and heavy, and like he's leading it first and he's doing the things. And then we get to this like dull magnet and it's no longer doing that. And we get mad at our partners about it, when in reality, it is us. We cannot control another person. A lot of us are waiting around being like, why aren't they doing this? And it's like, well, something, you can't control what the heck they're doing. Right. But if you want more masculinity in your life, how can you be more feminine? How can you be more receivership? And so when we're looking at these things, a good place to really start is looking at the fears of the masculine and the fears of the feminine. Again, you see me looking behind you because, of course, I have 8,000 freaking notes all the time. And so understanding the fears and the desires of men. Best thing you can ever know in your life is this: they, more than anything, love to be appreciated and respected. That's all they fucking want. Like, just like noticing them. And like, men love compliments. Again, I'm talking about this a lot in module HE. Like the rest of the series that we're going through now it was a lot of the inner work in the beginning. That's why I split it up in the Q&As in this way. And now it's like getting out there and like understanding the men and things like that. They love appreciation. They love respect. They melt, and they don't get it enough. This is why you see them being high achievers and they have all their father wounds and all the kind of things, because they just want to be good enough just like us. But this is where that comes from. Their biggest fear is not measuring up, not being good enough, being criticized, being shamed. The biggest masculine wound is shame. And so when we're nitpicking them, saying, but you didn't get me the things that I wanted, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, we're nitpicking them. And like my biggest lessons are like my two most recent relationships. Actually, I did this a lot with my partner, my first partner, where I was like, you can never do anything like just the way I wanted it. Right? Like, I'm a bougie motherfucker. Like, I love beautiful things. My date nights for myself are like candlelit and like all these things. And like, I wanted someone to love me in that way. Totally blocking the way he wanted to love me. And so it was always that he felt he could never do right, because that's not a natural thing to men. Like, that's not, of course, maybe like at a certain age, they're like in their mid 40s. I've had very romantic men that they're like, I've been married once, I know how this works, but they don't do it by choice. Like, they do it because they're afraid of getting in trouble. And that's not love, right? Like, that's little boy energy. And so that gets exhausting. And that's when we get to that phase of like, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And then they leave, and then they do these things because they've been so criticized. Whereas in my previous relationship or my next, whatever the fuck, last relationship, I guess is the way of saying that, it was like, this man, I just like let him love me in the way that he wanted to love me. And I made my receivership and my joy of it his favorite thing. And it wasn't this faking like good boy energy that we kind of get very confused on. It was like, I genuinely loved it. Like, this man, for Christmas, I'm an experienced human being. I take me to a fancy hotel with a nice robe and like get me a massage and I'm happy. No, this man came to my house and saw that my hair dryer was broken and that my slippers were a little bit ratty, and what else did he get me? And some other things. And so he got me all these, but the research, it's some hats, because I always am usually wearing like a big ass fucking bougie hat. And so he did the amount of research to go get these things. And so when I open up a hair dryer on Christmas, I'm like, what? But also, I know this man, and I'm like, I know how much research you probably put into this fucking hair dryer. And that's what I love. Like that, I'm like, sure, like whatever. Like, I'm here for it because you were giving it to me. And that then allows him to love you in the way that he wants to show you how to be loved. It's not going to be in the way that you want it. It's not like, we unintentionally emasculate men so often because we're telling them, this is how I want to be loved. And if you don't do this, you're doing it wrong. We don't do it on purpose. It's just the safety coping mechanisms that we do that really does just like diminish them and play in their biggest masculine wound, which is not measuring up. And so to shift that, right, there's two ways. Is one, however you love yourself, and we'll talk about this more in module E, of your worthiness and the standard for yourself and how you hold yourself. And like one time, I make myself luxurious baths and I set up these things. So one day I came back, we were in a hotel, and my partner had set up just a candlelit, like tiny little tea candles. Like, it was so janky and so ghetto. Like, it was this whole setup. But it was like, and then because he was a pilot, he like had all these little snacks that he ripped open the free snacks that you get on an airplane and then put them in a tray. And he's like, charcuterie. And I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is just like the effort. And so it's like, but he saw the way that I love myself and the way if I've had a long day, how I like to wind down is a candlelit bat with a little bit of nice charcuterie.
With charcuterie.
Good wine. But like, he's like, this is what I got. But I know this is what I do. And so he couldn't really mess that up because he saw the way that I love myself. So that was one way my feminine is healed. And the way that you can start to look at your feminine outside of dating is just, how do you treat yourself day in and day out? How do you nurture yourself? How do you love yourself? And that's a day-to-day experience, right? Like that's the way that you dress, the way that you eat, the way that you spend your time, the way that you self-soothe. These things, people are watching how you do that. Just like little kids, men are watching, or they're like, how do you do that? Because it's not something they have, right? Like my partners, every single time, they're like, what are you journaling about? Or like my brother, he'd be like, I'm sitting and he lives in Japan. And so sometimes I'm like journaling and he's like, so talk to me about that like journaling thing you do. Like, what is that? And I was like, my brain in words on paper. Like I don't understand. But it's not a natural thing because they were raised to be tough, provide, lead, don't cry, don't explore this part of self because it's feminine. So now it's this whole little awakening thing that they're like, I don't understand. So they're watching you, how you take care of you, and to model that femininity. Because again, we all have masculine, we all have feminine, and they haven't yet been explored this, so they have no idea. So when they're playing with it, they like, don't make them wrong about it. They have no idea. The other part of this is understanding, the women's wants, needs, desires. And so the women, as a woman, we want to be loved and cherished. That's it. We want to be loved and cherished. Our being loved is the same as men wanting to be appreciated. But sometimes our self-righteousness gets in the way of like, if you would just love me, I would appreciate you. And it's like, that's not how that works. The way we get love is by appreciating and respecting. And sometimes we feel like, oh, well, people have to earn respect. People have to earn my trust. The truth is, the masculine, you trust them. And I forget which module I talked about this. And I think it was actually module H. It's probably like the way that you trust men is how much you trust yourself, right? How you show up for yourself, how much trust you build is like, even if you leave, I'm okay. Getting to that point is so fucking powerful. And then our biggest wound is disappointment, but our biggest fear is being abandoned. And it's not just the physical abandonment of someone leaving, it's not feeling safe. It's not feeling seen. It's not feeling heard. Right. And I'm sure you can think back to so many times in relationships where you're like, this sucks. You don't see me. You're not listening. You're not paying attention to me. But like, this is why when we're in partnership, these things, they just like butt heads because you're like, you don't see me. And they're like, you don't fucking respect me. You're yelling at me right now. You're treating me like a little boy. You're not letting me lead you. You're not letting me do these things. And we're just like doing this. And it's like, just see me. And it's creating this wound, this gap between love and respect, love and appreciation, admiration, and all these little spaces. And so to really move away from this and step into how to, boost this in relationship, which is the question that you asked of like, how do I do this in dating? This part doesn't make sense. Me neither. I was like, I'm cute. I don't get it. Like, like, what do you mean? Look at all my nice stuff. It really is the easiest thing is receiving joyfully. And that means like, make your response to things someone's favorite thing to do, because that is going to spark his doing energy. He's going to want to provide for you. That's his natural thing. He wants to take care of you. He loves to give. Men love to give. And especially when you have a response that is true. Like I said, when he gave me a hairdryer, it's honestly the best hairdryer that I've ever had. But like when he gave it to me, I was just like so in love that he even gave me a present, and the fact that like later in like after I found out about this in Christmas past, like the fact that he called my friends to figure out all this stuff, he had all this research, like his friends, and I was like, for a hat and a hairdryer. And I was like, Like, that's it. Like, I don't even care what the fuck it is. Like, it's just cute. And it's like, because his favorite thing, and I have so many posts on this where I was like, I could like feel his eyes on me all the time, because anytime I'm in something, and I don't fake it, I'm very much over the top. I know that. But the fact that I can now express my joy for things like delightfully and like way excited. Like, I just posted a reel where I'm like dancing in front of a lemonade stand because I literally was screaming in excitement about the lemonade stand. Like, people like to give me things, God, universe, source, plus my friends, plus men, because it's fun. I'm someone that receives so well. Like, I'm not like, oh no, I can't receive that. I'm like, thank you so much. This is so amazing. And I mean it. But that took time, because for a long time I was like, oh no, like that is way too much. I don't deserve that. Or like, oh, because it would be this like, oh, well, if you give me this, therefore I have to now give you something. Or I have to earn it in order to receive it. Or I have to now give you something back because I know your mental games, because a lot of our parents were manipulative like that. If I give you something, you better be a good girl. So we close ourselves off from truly just receiving something and being like, oh my God, thank you. And then there's this other part of it where we don't want them to think that we can't do it ourselves. So we don't want to receive. I don't want them to pay for this because I don't want them to think I can't do it and that my business isn't successful, or I don't have, like, I see this with my clients a lot where it's like, well, I don't want him to think that my business isn't successful and therefore that he has to pay for everything. I'm like, put your fucking credit card away. Don't even try. Like, don't do that. Like, if you want a man that is providing, like, they love to get a man loves to get a boy is going to ask you to split things. He's going to do these kind of things. And that is okay for some people's relationships. That is not what I want. I don't. I can provide whatever the fuck I want for myself. I don't want to. I just don't want to. Like, that's the choice. Is like, I can sit, I know I can open that jar of pickles, but if you're home, I'm going to ask you to open that jar of pickles. Like, I know I could stab it, I could smash it on things, I could open it up because you're here. And I know it's going to boost your masculinity. And I also know it's just kind of nice. Like, it's just nice that you do things for me. Please open the jar of pickles. Like, and then being like, oh my God, like, thank you. Like, being in that receivership of that saves marriages, saves relationships. And it really is just sitting there and it's like receiving, but receiving joyfully is one of the key and biggest things. And so it's really moving into that, and it's letting him feel like he's needed, especially now in this modern day with women on the rise. Don't get me wrong, like, I love it. I love it. But the biggest wound, so there's I listen to a lot of Connor Beaton, who is Man Talks Radio podcast. And he talks about this, where it's like nowadays, 41% of men make less than the women at home. Whereas that's what they've been trained. Provide for your woman and make more money. They're not going to college anymore. They're not really use, like, we don't even need them to make babies anymore. Like, there's not really a use. And so they're having this whole mental health crisis because we as women are like, one of the parts of us is still, we want someone to provide for us. We want someone to, be in this leadership and all these kind of things. And they're like, but there's not really space for that. And so the more you can make a man feel needed in your life, the more powerful he feels, and the more that he feels like he has a place in his life. And that comes from your femininity, that comes from receiving, that comes from letting him lead you. And that doesn't necessarily mean financially or whatever, but in what ways are you kind of controlling or getting in the way of things, or not even letting him, my biggest wound is I didn't want to feel needy, but there's a difference between neediness and making him feel needed, because neediness is, I cannot survive without you. I've had that. Codependency is fucking real. Like, I've had that, the trauma bonding, the flame, like the twin flame shit, like that part. Yeah, that's way too much pressure, where someone's like, I can't be responsible for your happiness. Like, that is a lot. But when you like need your man, and like there's like a difference, like you're turned on by him and you're like, I just like want you, like I need you. He, like, that is different. Even just like, I need you to open this jar of pickles, like that is different. Obviously he knows you're capable of opening your door, a jar of pickles, all the kind of things, but like, if you just let him do that, he feels needed, he feels desired. And it's such a simple switch. Like, you don't have to prove the fact. Like, that is such an innocent wound from our childhood of like, well, I have to prove that I can do it myself. I can open my door. I can pay for my bills. I don't know what the heck other people are waiting for them to do, but like those are the main ones where it's like I can do it myself. And it's like, yeah, no one is challenging you on that. Like no one is, obviously he knows you're an educated woman. Why else would a high value man be out with you? He knows you're very capable of doing things on your own. You're not a child. But if you can just let him feel needed by doing these little micro things, he's going to be like drooling over you. It's actually a huge thing. And this comes from letting down your masculine shield and dating. And so our big thing in especially entrepreneurs or survival or anyone that's been through shit, we fear being open. And you guys have heard me say this all the time, where it's like your job in this journey is to no longer put any more shit in your body. You know, like if something comes in, it's like just letting that emotion move through you, letting it go through. It's no longer putting more in. And that's doing that quick little thought process of, I choose to stay open. Like I choose to stay open right now. So like when they're not doing something right, or like when they, I don't know, plan a stupid date that like you wouldn't, like when one of my friends, he's like, we're going to go do activities. And I was like, I don't even own jeans. Like, how do you, what activity am I going to do? And he's like, we can go mini golf. We can go bowling. I was like, I'm wearing stilettos. Like, I don't own anything like that. But I was like, but also you're leading. Like, I trust you. You got it. Like, you go do your thing. I got it. I borrowed a pair of jeans from my friend. I still wore stilettos. But I was like, sure, we're here. But it's like, I'm gonna let you lead. I'm gonna surrender and stay open to this experience. I'm gonna be so excited, genuinely, because it's something new that I've never done. I'm just gonna see how this is. And literally the man, like I can think of the guy that took me on the date, he's like, I feel like such a man. And I was like, go. Like it's like, that's because if you can take off this like shield that you have of like, I don't want to be too open because what if he thinks I'm too much, or what if he thinks I'm too vulnerable, or things like that. It's like, so what? You're not trauma spilling onto him. You're just being your feminine self, which is love, which is nurturing, which is caring, which is intuitive. That is your magnetism. And I'm going to talk about magnetism in module M. A lot of this stuff is like, I know we're coming up on time, so it's like a lot of this stuff is being broken down even more so over the next modules, because now we're moving into the actual like polarity and play and getting out into the world. We just first needed to do the inner workings and things like that. And so really, when it comes to the dating and the femininity piece, it's just, where can you let yourself receive? Right? How can you do it joyfully? How can you put your masculine shield down where you get to be playful and sensual? Like that, to men, is the most magnetic thing. I just shared, I forgot what reel I shared that on, but recently, and then I have another one coming up, because it really is about when you feel safe enough in yourself, you feel safe enough to express your femininity, right? If we don't feel safe within ourselves, opening up the portals of our feminine is it's hard. This is why when I was telling you in the initial part where it's like, I said to my friend, I wanted to be feminine, but I didn't feel safe enough yet. I didn't feel like I could be my goofy fucking self that's like screaming emo music, DJing the next, like running around, shaking my ass in front of a lemonade stand, because I was like, people are going to think I'm weird. This is going to think like all the narratives that we have. But truly, when you do the first part of what we've done so far, you start to cultivate this inner safety within yourself. And now we get to actually explore, what does feminine expression for you mean? And then it just flows naturally in relationship, where you get to feel safe enough to receive. You get to be playful. You get to, be off the cuff and wild and loving and vulnerable. And it just comes naturally to the point that they're like, where the hell, who are you, miss rare and valuable thing? Like, what is this? And so we are stepping into that, but I did just kind of want to have a little breakdown of that right now, because I realized I hadn't deeply gone into that yet. So thank you for that question. It was very good. Do you have any questions around this?
No, there were so many information and so much input, and I've written down a lot of things. So many things like I think it's the same with the question before. I'm I've done so much thinking on that. Like, as you said, how could I be more feminine? Oops, I'm masculine right now. And yesterday, I realized that I know how to be feminine. It's as you said, I know how to be like bubbly and friendly, and know how to find pressure in the tiniest things. So that's not a problem. I just have to switch it back on. I just have to let my guard down, yeah, and just be who I am, and
Exactly.
not think so much about oh, what is feminine? I have to write it down and I have to be like that. I already know. Yeah, that was big.
I love that. And then it is that funny thing where it's like we're such logical human beings. We're like, okay, what is the logical step to get me to be a female,
Yeah.
feminine? And it's like, no, your feminine essence, especially as female, we have it. It's very heightened in us. And if I always think, and I said this in, I need to get my modules right. No, it was module A. Yeah, the feminine essence, where it's like babies. Babies are the most feminine thing. They are get this. I have my niece, she lives in Japan with my brother, but like the videos, she's excited about like a little like water bottle that has like a little squirty on it. She's like, what? Like it's the best thing ever. And I'm like, this feminine little creature. Like it's just fun to watch how excited she gets over a freaking box and like our natural tendency. And then all of a sudden, life started to happen and we build these protectors of like, no, you can't have that childlike play anymore, that delight. It's unsettling to a lot of people. You can't be that happy. Tone it down. Be seen but not heard. Da, 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 da. All the narratives that we've been told. And so now, as we start to get older, it really is just getting rid of all of the shit that told us we're not allowed to be that way, and then just turning it on. Like, I'm not saying like every single second you're like, amazing, but it's like it is that emotional honesty. Femininity, at least to me in the way that I teach it, it's emotional honesty, because there's also the dark femme. I have a very dark brain. I have a brain that is a depression and anxiety and worst case scenario thinking. And my ex used to tell me, he's like, you go through more emotions in a day than I have in the last 3 months. And I'm like, thank you. Like, it's so good, isn't it? And he was like, I don't know how you keep up with it. And I was like, it's just me. Like, I've been this way my whole life, but I had to shut it down for so long using drugs and alcohol and antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications and all the fucking shit to now come into this space where it's like, actually, feminine is just not that you like outspurt it everywhere, but like you feel everything. That's why I said it's actually the strongest, because you feel it and you know where to transmute it and how to hold it and when to express it. And it's just getting rid of all the protectors that told us it's wrong, to then sit there and go, actually, this is just me. I get very excited about things. I get very sad about things. I feel this way. I don't feel that way. It's like, this is just where the feminine is. And as soon as we start to move away from like trying to note down of like, how do I get this right? You can't get it wrong. You were born this way. It's your natural way of being. It's just getting rid of all the shit that got built up in the process. I love it. But we will be doing, I mean, this is, you're way ahead of it. I loved this question. I was like, this is a perfect segue because this is exactly what we're going to be covering the rest of this time. But yeah, even more so because this one, the module that got dropped today was healing the relationship to the masculine. And then understanding the masculine brain. So I just started to get into this process, and then we'll be getting more into all the getting out there world and all the good things. So I'm excited for that. Before we close out, do you have any more questions or anything?
I think I have to integrate a lot now. all of the things I've written down, all of the things that came up in my mind too. And yeah, I was just really feeling when you said I would like to have get invited into a hotel with a fancy robe and things, and then he got me a hairdresser. But I could really feel the energy, and it was like, yeah, as he said, oh, a hairdresser, and thought so much about it, and I think that, yeah, that was good. I think I truly understood the difference between that. There's more love and more thinking and more, I don't know, just more emotion behind that hairdresser, even though you thought you didn't want a new hairdresser from him. So that was very inspiring.
Yeah. And that's when you give people permission, because the truth is we all have different, beyond love languages, we all have different ways that we like to be loved. And especially in early stage dating, you don't know that about someone, right? And they don't know that about you.
Mm.
Yet we take it as like a personal attack. If like, he didn't get me what I wanted. It's like, well, did you tell
Mm.
him what you wanted? And it's like, no, he should just know. By what standard? He's not going to know for another 10 years. Like, let men just don't think that way. But it's like, but the amount, if you truly know men, where it's like the amount of thought that goes into the thing that they got you. Like my mentor was talking about, she was in Japan with a bunch of guys on a ski trip, and she's like, we were out shopping all day long for their wives. He came back with a lunchbox. Like, nothing describes men more. Or it's like, they're like this, and I was like, yeah, that literally is my relationship. Where it's like all these things, I was like, I know how much thought went into this, and it's like, and I love you for that. And also, you're teaching me new ways of being loved, because I thought this was the way I needed to be loved. If it wasn't this way, and then all my body is going to go into, oh, he doesn't love me. And it's like, no, he's just loving you in the way he wants to love you, which then expands you. And ultimately, the deepest love and what we all want in relationship is acceptance. Both parties in relationship just want to be fully accepted for who they are. So the more that you can, someone comes in, and of course you get to siphon between like, is this the way that I want to be loved? Like, do I want a hair blow dryer for Christmas? And it's like, yeah, actually, like, this is kind of great. Like, the experience side of things, I can plan them. I can tell him, I love this so much, or I can be more direct of what I want, or I can have my best friend sweep in and like give him ideas. But like, yeah, actually that is. But for some people, it's like, no, I want someone like my best friend. She wants experiences. She wants bougie things. If someone got her hair dryer, she'd probably throw it at them. Like, that's not what she wants. And that's okay. For me, again, it's really deciphering, like, how do you want to be loved? What are your needs? What are your values? We're going to be talking about this in Module E. Can you communicate them effectively? And then you get to decide who you want. Like, there are 8.5 billion people in this 8.5 billion people. Like, someone's gonna figure it out in the way that you want. Do we have to compromise and figure out, like, what does it mean to be accepted? It's a huge, huge thing. And then they get to like, because men, honestly, if they've been in a relationship, they've been put down so much where they can't get it right. Someone has yelled at them, someone has done something, so they're actually really afraid to even try to get you something, to do something for you, because they've been yelled at for doing it wrong. And so it's this like rare and valuable moment when you sit there and you're actually so pleased because they just did it. And that's when you heal the feminine pain body, because it's no longer, I need you to get me this present to make me feel loved. It's, I'm good, like, on my own, because I can do these things myself, and I do these things myself. So anything you give me is just a value add. Like, anything a hair blow dryer, fucking great. Like, it's a value add. I still will go to the hotels and do the things I want. You know, it really is just kind of playing with that mindset where it's like, if you want full acceptance, how can you fully accept another? And then regulate between, is this what I want? Can I still fully accept them? And then you get to choose if that's the partner that you want. But yeah, it's a really freeing concept to start to step into. So I'm excited to explore this even more within the coming modules and just kind of get into this working of the outward approach now, which is going to be really exciting.
Great.
All right, my love.
You.
Well, of course. Thank you for being patient with the time.
No problem.
I'm so sorry. Oh my god. I like saw that. I'm like, okay, fuck. Okay, but I will get it right for the next one. Notification. It will be at 10 a.m. I don't do things before 10 a.m. I don't know why that was on there, but anyways, thank you for being patient with that. That was my fuck up. But yeah, I love this, and I'll see you inside of Telegram. And if you have any other questions, I know, like, when we're like sitting and marinating on things, questions will come up.
Yeah.
Go blow up Telegram. It'll be fun. It'll be a vibe. So, and then enjoy Module H that got dropped earlier today.
Yes, I have to watch that.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Of course. It's nice to finally meet you face to face.
Yeah, it was great having 1 hour just for myself.
I know. You're like,
thank you.
session. I love this. I love it. All right, my dear.
Great.
See you somewhere on the internet.
Yes. Bye.